My coworkers sent a fake Best Dressed award calling me dollar store drag, and my manager laughed. So I tracked every IP, sent it to HR, and watched the CEO host a harassment town hall while my manager magically vanished from the org chart. When I first opened that email, I thought it was some HR announcement. The subject line read, "Congratulations to our 2025 office superlatives." It looked like a fun thing. Everyone loves a dumb office meme, right? But when I scrolled down and saw my name bolded under Best Dressed, my stomach twisted. It read, "Best Dressed, my name, most likely to confuse business casual with dollar store drag." There was a stock photo of a clown pasted underneath. Someone had even added my face to it, cropped from a work event picture. The whole office thread was filled with laughing emojis. I froze, then reread it, then checked the sender list. It wasn't just some random chat. This email had been sent to the entire office, including management. I sat there, staring at the screen while the laughter carried across cubicles. Someone actually snorted and said, "Oh, come on, it's funny." My manager, Steve, came up behind me when he saw my expression. "Hey," he said, half grinning, "don't take it personally. It's just a joke. You know how people are." I asked him if he was going to say something since this was clearly harassment. He shrugged. "You'll look uptight if you make it a big deal, just laugh it off." I didn't. I logged out, went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror until the red in my face cooled into something else. Not embarrassment, not even anger yet, something sharper. By the end of the day, I knew what I was going to do. That night, I printed every version of that email. The original, the forwards, the replies with laughing emojis. Then I started tracing every IP address, every timestamp. Emergency town hall mandatory attendance. When I walked into the auditorium, people looked nervous. HR stood near the front. The CEO was there, expression tight. But Steve's chair, my manager, was empty. And then the CEO said, "We're here to address a serious case of workplace harassment discovered in internal communications." I sat there, heart pounding, knowing this was just the beginning. I started working at HarborTech Financial 2 years ago. It was supposed to be my big break. I'd left a smaller firm in Indiana and moved to Dallas because this job offered a better salary, benefits, and what I thought would be a more professional environment. I didn't realize how fake that word could sound until I met the people there. From the first week, I noticed the looks. I dressed differently than most people in that office. I like bright colors, loud earrings, bold prints. I've never been the neutral tones and flats type. I wear what makes me feel confident, not what fits their bland corporate box. At first, it was little comments. "Wow, that's colorful. Is that dress for a costume party? I could never pull that off, but you're so brave." Always delivered with a smile that never reached their eyes. Then came the whispers when I walked by. The laughter that stopped when I turned around. I'd tell myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was too sensitive. But every time I'd pass the break room, someone would be showing my Instagram to another coworker, pretending they were scrolling through something else when I caught them. The worst was Steve, my manager. He'd say things like, "You're definitely not boring, that's for sure," in meetings when I'd walk in. People would laugh and I'd force a smile because what else could I do? I tried to fit in. Tried toning it down. Bought a few blazers, duller shirts. It didn't matter. Once you're the punchline, there's no dressing your way out of it. A few months before the dollar store drag email, someone created a meme of me wearing a sequin top at a company happy hour. They captioned it, "When your work outfit says 9 to 5 but your soul says karaoke host." It got passed around Slack for days. I reported it. HR said they couldn't verify the origin. Steve told me to take it as a compliment. I should have known then that no one would protect me. So when that final email hit, the one that publicly humiliated me in front of the entire company, it wasn't the first time they'd come for me. It was just the most visible one. The one they thought I wouldn't dare fight back against. They forgot one thing about me. I keep everything. Every message, every screenshot, every offhand comment. When they pushed me too far, I finally stopped trying to survive quietly, because now I had proof. And I knew exactly how to use it. The day after that email went out, the atmosphere at HarborTech was thick. You could feel it the moment you walked in, like everyone knew something bad had happened, but they weren't sure if they were allowed to admit it. When I stepped into the office, the room went quiet for half a second. Then someone near the back, Kevin from sales, let out a laugh. Loud, deliberate. He said, "Guess we know who won best dressed, huh?" And a few people chuckled nervously. That was it for me. I sat at my desk, logged in, and started working like nothing happened. I answered emails, scheduled calls, smiled when people came by my desk. But inside, I was cataloging everything. Who laughed? Who avoided eye contact? Who looked scared? I didn't confront anyone. That would have made me look emotional, and I knew they'd use that word against me later. So I waited. I stayed quiet. I let them believe I was embarrassed into silence. At lunch, I overheard two women whispering in the break room. One said, "I think HR's looking into it." The other replied, "They can't prove who sent it. It came from the Marketing Fun account." That's when I knew. Whoever did this had used an internal shared alias to hide their identity. A group email used by the marketing team for internal jokes and campaigns. Smart, but not smart enough. That night, I logged into my personal computer and started digging. I had friends in it, people who'd left HarborTech but still remembered the system. One of them, Alex, owed me a favor from when I helped him fix a data report that saved him from getting written up. I messaged him, told him what happened, and he said, "Send me the full header of the email." By 11 p.m., I had it. It wasn't just from marketingfun@harbortech.com. The originating IP belonged to a personal laptop logged into the corporate network. And the laptop was assigned to one person. Steve, my manager. He'd been the one who approved the joke email before it went out. He'd even forwarded it to another manager with LOL in the subject line. I sat there, staring at his name on that screen, and it all clicked. Every time he brushed off my complaints, every "don't take it personally." Every time he turned a blind eye, it wasn't passive. It was deliberate. He'd been behind it the whole time. That night I started printing. Dozens of copies. The full email chain, headers, IP logs, timestamps. I organized everything into a neat folder labeled Workplace Harassment Documentation. Then I wrote one email. Calm, professional, bullet-pointed. I attached every file, copied every higher-up, and hit send. When I came in the next morning, the HR director's office light was on. People were whispering, and Steve's door locked. I didn't know then that my email had detonated a bomb. But I was about to see the fallout. 2 days after I sent that email, I got called into HR. The director, Lisa, was sitting there with someone from legal, and a man I didn't recognize. Turned out he was from our corporate compliance team. They had my printed evidence folder on the table. Lisa said, "We reviewed your claims, and we can confirm that the internal email was, in fact, distributed from your manager's credentials. However," that pause, I'll never forget it, "he claims you had access to his system and that you may have tampered with his email permissions." I stared at her. "You think I hacked my boss's email to humiliate myself?" Lisa gave me that HR half-smile, the one that means we're pretending to be neutral, but you're already in trouble. "He alleges there's been tension between you two for some time," she said, flipping through notes. "He says you've been insubordinate, that you've complained excessively, and that you once made a threatening comment during a performance review." That last part, that was a lie. I'd told him I was tired of being treated like a joke. That's it. But he twisted it. The corporate guy said, "Until we can determine what happened, we'll be putting you on paid administrative leave." It hit me so fast I didn't even know how to react. I sat there in silence while they handed me paperwork. They wouldn't let me go back to my desk. Someone from security walked me out of the building like I'd stolen something. I went home shaking. Steve had turned everything around on me. Not only that, but he was clearly doing damage control fast. Within hours, I noticed coworkers unfollowing me on LinkedIn. My work Slack access was cut. Then a friend from the office texted me, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but Steve told people you were under investigation for data misuse. Said you might get arrested." Arrested. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just office bullying anymore. This man was trying to destroy me. But what Steve didn't know, what made me start to smile again even through the panic, was that I hadn't just sent those emails to HR. I'd also blind copied the company's diversity and equity partner, who reported directly to the board. And she didn't take kindly to being ignored. The next morning, the CEO called an emergency town hall. People thought it was about budgets. It wasn't. He walked up to the podium and said, We've identified serious violations of our harassment and ethical conduct policies." The entire office went dead silent. I scanned the crowd. No Steve, no HR director. Then the CEO said something that made my heart stop. "There's been evidence of systematic misconduct, including attempts to falsify records." Systematic, falsify. He said it like a warning shot. That's when I realized Steve hadn't just framed me. He'd done this before. After the town hall, the company went into chaos. People whispered in corners. Emails slowed to a crawl. The Slack channels that used to be non-stop noise went silent. Something big was happening behind closed doors, and even though I was technically on leave, I could feel it building. I wasn't going to wait to find out what Steve did next. I spent the next week building my case, properly this time. I wasn't just fighting back emotionally, I was constructing a bulletproof file. I created a private Google Drive folder titled HarborTech Incident Full Evidence. Inside, I organized everything chronologically. Screenshots, emails, timestamps, the Slack meme, my HR reports, and even old meeting notes where Steve had made inappropriate jokes I'd written down at the time. But I didn't stop there. I started reaching out. Quietly. First to a former coworker named Dana who'd quit suddenly last year. I'd always wondered why. When I called her and told her what was happening, she went quiet. Then she said, "He did the same thing to me." She told me how Steve had made fun of her accent in front of clients, said she was too ethnic to be client-facing, and then retaliated when she reported him. HR had brushed it off as a miscommunication. She left before she could fight it. Dana still had the emails. She sent them to me. Then another person, Alex from IT, the one who helped me trace the IP, texted me saying that internal logs were suddenly being cleaned. He said, "I can't say much, but he's deleting emails from his outbox. You need to move fast." That night, I went coldly methodical. I contacted the Texas Workforce Commission, EEOC, and a private employment lawyer I found through a referral subreddit. The lawyer called me back within an hour after I sent my evidence. He said, "You're sitting on a goldmine of retaliation and harassment claims." He helped me write a formal letter, not an email, a physical certified letter, addressed to HarborTech's CEO and the entire board of directors. It outlined every instance of harassment, every ignored report, and now the attempt to frame me. The lawyer attached copies of the emails from Dana too. We sent it overnight. Then I waited. A week later, HR called again. This time, their tone had completely changed. No paid leave, no accusations, just, "We'd like to invite you to a follow-up discussion about your recent complaint. It appears new information has come to light." I agreed, but before hanging up, I asked if Steve would be there. The pause was long. Then Lisa said, "No, he's been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation." When I logged onto LinkedIn that night, Steve's profile was gone. Deleted, but before I could even feel relief, I got a text from a blocked number. "You think this is over, you don't know what you just started." It was him. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Steve wasn't going down quietly. And I wasn't done fighting. The morning after I got that text, I woke up to a call from my lawyer. His voice was tense. "You might want to sit down," he said. Apparently, overnight, HarborTech's IT department had discovered something new, something buried deep in Steve's email archives that went far beyond my harassment case. A hidden folder of forwarded messages, screenshots, and files labeled with initials that didn't make sense at first. But once they cross-referenced them, it became horrifyingly clear. Steve had been running a secret group chat with several mid-level managers, trading office gossip, mocking employees, sharing private HR information, even making bets on who would crack under pressure next. And the worst part, my name appeared in that chat for months. There were photos of me from company events, taken secretly, threads where they dissected my outfits. One message from Steve read, "She's such an easy target. HR won't touch it as long as I keep her numbers decent." Another replied, "Make sure you CC the team when you roast her. We need the Friday laughs." I felt sick reading the excerpts my lawyer showed me. But then came the real twist. In those messages, Steve had also bragged about something else, how he'd manipulated quarterly reports to make his department look more profitable than it really was. He'd been padding client hours and falsifying billables for nearly a year. So while he thought he was just humiliating me for fun, he'd actually left a digital trail linking him to corporate fraud. The company had no choice now. This wasn't just an HR issue, it was a criminal one. Within 48 hours, Steve's email account was suspended, his office was sealed, and legal investigators took over. I didn't hear from him again, but that silence didn't feel safe. Because a few days later, when I checked my security camera footage at home, I'd started using them after his text, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Around midnight, someone had walked up to my front door, stood there for several seconds, then turned and left. The footage was grainy, but I could see the outline of a man, tall, bulky shoulders, wearing a company fleece jacket with the HarborTech logo. I called the police, filed a report, sent the footage to my lawyer. They couldn't prove it was him, but I didn't need them to. I knew. That's when I realized something. Steve wasn't just a bully or a fraud. He was dangerous. And if the company wasn't going to keep me safe, I'd do it myself. A week after the police report, I finally got the full picture, and it was worse than I ever imagined. Lisa from HR called me privately. She sounded different, exhausted, like someone who just realized how deep the rot went. She said, "I need to tell you something off the record." Apparently, during the internal audit, they found something in Steve's private emails that explained everything, why he targeted me, why he created that fake best-dressed email, why he fought so hard to flip the blame. It wasn't random humiliation. It was calculated self-preservation. Turns out, about 6 months before all this, a compliance alert had flagged Steve's department for inconsistencies in client billing. One of the names that kept popping up on those flagged reports was mine. Not because I did anything wrong, but because Steve had used my work ID to log billable hours under fake projects. He'd been laundering fake hours through my account to inflate his team's numbers. Every time he needed to cover up a shortfall, he'd tack phantom tasks onto my timesheets. And when the internal auditors questioned them, he'd claim I was just disorganized. So when I started complaining about harassment and drawing attention to myself, I became a liability. That's when he launched the smear campaign. The memes, the jokes, the public shaming, all of it was to discredit me before I could ever expose him. If I looked like an emotional, dramatic employee, then no one would believe me later when the fraud surfaced. Lisa said the dollar store drag email was just the finale, his way to humiliate me enough that I'd quit quietly. He thought I'd pack up, leave, and never look back. And the reason he fought so hard to blame me afterward, because when it started digging into his IP logs, those fake billable entries were the first thing they found. Steve wasn't trying to save his job. He was trying to save himself from prison. But the part that stuck with me most was something Lisa said at the end. He told people you were too proud, too visible, that you didn't know how to play the game. He said people like you always burn out. I think that's what scared him. People like me, meaning anyone who didn't fit his mold, who didn't laugh at his jokes, who didn't shrink when he tried to make them smaller. I hung up that call shaking. Not from fear this time, from clarity. He tried to bury me to protect his lies. And now, I was going to bury him with the truth. The day HarborTech announced the outcome, the entire office was on edge. Nobody spoke above a whisper. Rumors had been flying all week about FBI interviews, seized laptops, and quiet resignations. At 10:17 a.m., a company-wide email hit every inbox. Subject line: Organizational update. It was short and cold. Effective immediately, Stephen P., last name, is no longer employed by HarborTech Financial due to gross misconduct and violations of company policy. We are cooperating fully with external investigators. By noon, his nameplate was gone from his office door. Security had escorted him out earlier that morning. Some said he tried to grab his laptop. Others said he shouted that he'd been set up. I didn't care which was true. What I did care about was the follow-up meeting I had that same afternoon, with the CEO, HR, legal, and my lawyer present. They didn't try to gaslight me this time. No condescension, no don't take it personally. Just straight facts. They acknowledged everything: the harassment, the retaliation, the falsified timesheets, even the stalking incident. They offered a formal apology, a settlement, and an NDA. But I refused to sign right away. I told them I wasn't after money. I wanted policy changes, mandatory diversity training that wasn't just a slideshow, a zero-tolerance clause for digital harassment, and a formal HR review process that bypassed direct managers. They looked stunned, like no one had ever asked for anything beyond a payout before. But I didn't flinch. Eventually, they agreed. When I walked out of that building for the last time, the air felt different. Quieter. 2 months later, I got a call from my lawyer. Steve had been indicted. The fraud charges stuck. He'd not only been falsifying hours, but also pocketing client bonuses through dummy accounts. The email evidence I'd collected had been critical. That night, I poured myself a drink, opened my laptop, and went back through that original email, the one that started it all. Most likely to confuse business casual with dollar store drag. I smiled, took a screenshot, printed it out. Then I framed it. It sits on my desk in my new office now, a small marketing firm that actually values creativity. People compliment my clothes, my earrings, my energy, they don't mock it. And every time I glance at that frame, I remember exactly what I learned through all this. You can laugh at someone for standing out, but you'll never laugh again when they finally stand up. The day HarborTech announced the outcome, the entire office was on edge. Nobody spoke above a whisper. Rumors had been flying all week about FBI interviews, seized laptops, and quiet resignations. At 10:17 a.m., a company-wide email hit every inbox. Subject line, organizational update. It was short and cold. Effective immediately, Stephen P. Last name is no longer employed by HarborTech Financial due to gross misconduct and violations of company policy. We are cooperating fully with external investigators. By noon, his nameplate was gone from his office door. Security had escorted him out earlier that morning. Some said he tried to grab his laptop, others said he shouted that he'd been set up. I didn't care which was true. What I did care about was the follow-up meeting I had that same afternoon, with the CEO, HR, legal, and my lawyer present. They didn't try to gaslight me this time. No condescension, no don't take it personally. Just straight facts. They acknowledged everything: the harassment, the retaliation, the falsified timesheets, even the stalking incident. They offered a formal apology, a settlement, and an NDA. But I refused to sign right away. I told them I wasn't after money. I wanted policy changes, mandatory diversity training that wasn't just a slideshow, a zero-tolerance clause for digital harassment, and a formal HR review process that bypassed direct managers. They looked stunned, like no one had ever asked for anything beyond a payout before. But I didn't flinch. Eventually, they agreed. When I walked out of that building for the last time, the air felt different. Quieter. 2 months later, I got a call from my lawyer. Steve had been indicted. The fraud charges stuck. He'd not only been falsifying hours, but also pocketing client bonuses through dummy accounts. The email evidence I'd collected had been critical. That night, I poured myself a drink, opened my laptop, and went back through that original email, the one that started it all. Most likely to confuse business casual with dollar store drag. I smiled, took a screenshot, printed it out. Then I framed it. It sits on my desk in my new office now, a small marketing firm that actually values creativity. People compliment my clothes, my earrings, my energy, they don't mock it. And every time I glance at that frame, I remember exactly what I learned through all this. You can laugh at someone for standing out, but you'll never laugh again when they finally stand up.